Welcome to this episode of Bounded in a Nutshell. Remember to take a moment to click on the link below to donate to a very special organization. Figure Skating in Harlem is the first organization in the world to combine the power of education with the grace and discipline of figure skating. It is dedicated to developing confidence, leadership, and academic achievement in young girls from low-income backgrounds. The numerous stories of success from its alumni owe a great deal to the unique blend of mentoring and self-expression that is championed by FSH. Remember, no donation is too small or too large to keep the dream alive for these exceptional young girls. Thank you very much. Enjoy the show. When she was nominated for a Golden Globe for her film debut in Corvette Summer in 1978, Annie Potts, the young girl from Nashville, Tennessee, via Franklin, Kentucky, had arrived in Hollywood. Over the years, Annie has enchanted audiences in movies such as Ghostbusters, Pretty in Pink, Who's Harry Crumb, Jumping Jack Flash, and Elvis Has Left the Building. She steals every scene as the voice of Bo Peep in the wonderful Toy Story movies. Annie shot to international fame playing the role of interior designer Mary Jo Shively on CBS sitcom Designing Women. She was nominated for an Emmy Award for a portrayal of Dana Palladino in Love and War, and Screen Actors Guild Award nomination for a portrayal of Mary Elizabeth Sims in Lifetime drama series Any Day Now. She has appeared in numerous TV shows, including Two and a Half Men, Ugly Betty, Grey's Anatomy, Boston Legal. You have to tell me about William Shatner. You really do. The Fosters, and is currently appearing as everyone's favorite grandmother, Connie Meemaw Tucker, on CBS hit sitcom Young Sheldon. Annie made her Broadway debut when she joined the cast of Tony Award-winning play God of Carnage. She later returned to Broadway as Bertha in Dana Paulus's Pippin. Annie will be returning to our big screens as Janine Melnitz in upcoming Ghostbuster movie Afterlife. It's a pleasure to have a dear friend and just an incredible artist, Annie Potts, with us today. Hello, Annie.
Hi. Nice to be here.
It's wonderful to have you. Thank you for taking time and stuff. Let's start at the beginning. Tennessee to Hollywood. Just a little bit about that, because that couldn't have been a straightforward or necessarily expected story, could it?
Probably not. It's unlikely at best. I grew up on a farm in Kentucky, and it was a small town, and there was nothing to do, so our parents sent us to camp in the summers. I mean, for the whole summer. And so there was a wonderful woman there who had a drama program in the camp, and I started acting there when I was, I don't know, 10 or 11, something like that. And then I was obsessed with it from the minute my feet were on the stage, and it was like, this is what I'm doing. And I went to a school in Missouri that had a wonderful theater program, and I was kind of the golden girl there. You know, I got all the juicy roles, and was kind of on a trajectory of just kind of just I was doing it. And then I right after I got out of college, I was like 3 months later, I was in a terrible car accident, and I broke every bone in my body below my waist but one. Everything just obliterated. And so then I had to deal with this really enormous setback, and I wasn't sure if I would ever be able to walk again well enough to do what I love to do. So, but rather than completely undermining me, it was actually enormously helpful to me. I mean, I've developed this idea over the years, because at first blush, it surely didn't look like a good thing, but it made me more determined than ever. And and you know, what I ended up doing was I was living at the time in Santa Fe, New Mexico, and just at the time when I was trying to decide what to do, somebody came through Santa Fe auditioning for the graduate program at Cal Arts, which was a brand new school then, really new. But anyway, I auditioned for them and they accepted me on the spot. It was like, yes, we want you.
Wow.
I was like,
On the
great, I'll do
spot,
that.
like in the room.
Yes.
Wow.
But I auditioned on a walker.
Wow. Wow.
And the guy who was doing the interview thing said, are you gonna like be okay for the fall semester? I went, I don't know, I think so. let's say I will be.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I ended up there. The school was very, very new and was not, it didn't really have a graduate program, really. And I was put in acting classes with people literally who had never been on stage before, freshmen.
Right.
I was like, well, this is bullshit. So I left after about 7-8 months. I didn't even finish the second semester. And I came down to LA where I never planned to be. I only ever wanted to do theater. And I came here and I started working in you know, little theaters here, you know, 99-seat houses, as we call them here. And I did a couple of years of just Shakespeare. And which is not all that popular here in LA. And then I got a job touring with a wonderful old actor. I mean, he wasn't old then; he was just in his 50s, but named Roddy McDowell, who had been a child star. Yes. And he's a lovely, lovely person. It was him and Vincent Price, the great, you know, horror movie actor.
Horror movie star,
like me, started out
and
as
the
doing
voice of the voice of Thriller. I mean, come on.
The voice of everything. He and his fantastic wife, named Coral Brown, who is she was Australian but had lived most of her life in England, and you know, was at the Old Vic with
Olivier and that lot.
Fabulous people. And Roddy in particular, when we got back off tour, he said, you know, I'd really like to help you. And I thought that was a very nice offer. He knew everybody. I mean, he'd been in the business since he was 7. But he made good on it. He was like all about getting me started here. And he introduced me to a good friend of his who was casting a pilot for NBC, and I went and read for her, and a week later I was starring in that pilot and then a year later I got my first movie film and got nominated for a Golden Globe. All of that is to say, like, wow, that sounds like pretty easy. I know. It wasn't.
It wasn't. No. I wanna, I mean, when you were, I don't want to stay on this too long, but I'm just trying to understand the mindset you had, or what you had to tell yourself every morning when you were recovering to walk again. Because you said you were determined it was going to make you stronger. What about this thing we do made you decide that I'm going to walk to act again? Do you know what I mean? Because just that it was a part of you and you couldn't think of anything else to do? I mean, how did you manifest such? I mean, it's literally learning to walk again, and you're not giving up on the dream. How did you manifest that for yourself?
Uh, I'm very willful. I don't know. I honestly think that it was because it was so hard and I so wanted to put it behind me that I I had, it gave me an energy that was positive, that I mean I don't know, I don't know what else could have um it could have gotten me over those early hurdles, but
Mhm.
I was just so I was so determined to make it work so I could put that behind me. I was just like, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, I can do it, I can, I'm
Yeah.
gonna do it. I'm doing it. And I mean, it was that just, and also, you know, I had people to help me. I had,
Mhm.
you know, people who put a hand out like Roddy and,
Mhm. Let's
um,
talk about that helping thing, because I know I was in New York. I'd given up the security of my career in London to come and do it here, because this was before all the streaming and all that stuff, when there were about 5 decent black roles on TV and film a year coming through England, and most of them would go to big names. So I moved here, but early on in that, I think I moved here like this November or December of 2012, and that next spring, like March, we met in pilot season for pilot Murder in Manhattan. And I remember you doing for me what Roddy did for you. Was I was new to this place, I was starting off, we'd met, and you invited me over to LA. I spent a couple of weeks at yours. You threw a party the first night, day I was there, to introduce, and all these meetings you set me up with, many of which are the casting people, Sandy Logan, Meg Lieberman, people that have taken a role in my life thanks to you and stuff in that sense. What I guess my statement is, how impactful was what Roddy did for you as going forward as an artist, when you think of helping people, you know?
well, you know, I mean, when you've been helped and been given a model of how to do it, then you thrive off that, then you kind of have to pay it forward.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's important to do that, and it's of course my greatest joy and privilege to have earned that seat to be able to now pass it around. I mean, if I mean, how could you not? How could you not?
Well, I mean, you hope it's a natural instinct for people, but it isn't a natural instinct necessarily, Annie. And I just wonder how much of those decisions to pass it forward comes out of your experience, how people have helped you in the past. You know what I mean?
Well, I think when you know, I've been around a long time. I do recognize talent when I see it, and I saw in you everything that you are, and I mean, I didn't think it would take but just a little help. Really, you were a slam dunk.
And so it's such a joy. Let's talk about this thing. You were thinking more theater than New York. Of course, a few years later, I saw you in Pippin, and I mean, that will talk about stage presence. I'll never forget you walking on stage for your song, the main one, as a character. And before you started, people just applauding as soon as you walked on. That must be a rush. But we'll talk about the rush of theater later. But why was it you thought, I guess you said you did Shakespeare. Was theater initially going to be the path forward for you, as opposed to TV and film?
Well, you know, I had thought originally that my in might be musical theater,
Mm-hmm.
because um I have a I have, or I had I had an interesting voice, you know, a quirky one that was working very well for Bernadette Peters at the time. And I thought, well, I could, you know, I could be that ingenue. And then, of course, after I broke my legs, it was like, well, that's probably not going to happen. So, you know, I had to rethink that. And, you know, that worked out pretty good. But I have to tell you, it was very, very meaningful when at the age of 62, I did a Broadway musical. And I even danced a little bit and did a trapeze act.
Trapeze act. You got on the trapeze and you sang on the trapeze. You know, that takes some support, you know.
But that for me was like, that was honestly, that was such a blessing from, I'll just say it, God. I mean, that just had the fingerprints of a larger thing all over it, because I mean, part of it was like, I mean, it did take 42 years to get me back in musical theater, but I was like, yes.
You were having, it was just so clear that you were having the time of your life doing that, when I saw you do Pippin and stuff. But were you as someone who isn't a singer and is just terrified at the prospect of having to sing, not just get away with it once, but 8 times a week? I mean, coming back to it, like you say, you hadn't done it for so long. Was it terrifying or just elating? You know, I mean.
Oh, it's, well, all of it, you know, like theater always is. It's the scariest, most satisfying. And sometimes, you know, you just want to jump off a bridge after a performance. Oh, God. But all of that. But it took me so darn long to get there. I was so thrilled. And I was, and I was surrounded by these wonderful acrobats. I'd never been in the circus before. And I came to appreciate them so much. I found them to be more dedicated, pretty much, than most actors I'd ever met.
Yeah.
They were joyous too. And it was a wonderful, wonderful, happy time for me.
And very different experience in God of Carnage, I'm guessing. I mean, how was that experience for you?
Well, you know,
because you joined the cast, didn't you? You took over from.
Well, they flipped the whole cast. It's a 4-hander.
Right.
And
yeah.
the whole original cast, all of whom had been nominated.
No pressure.
Talk about a high wire act. I mean,
yeah.
Both times I replaced people who had gotten a Tony for what they did. And you've got 2 weeks to do it.
Yeah.
You know, 2 weeks to do what they had 5 or 6 weeks to rehearse. So, but it's a very fun comedy, and I mean, you can't take a breath, or the thing leaves you, you know. But also, again, my whole life has played out as such a gift that, you know, it's like, okay, it took me 40 years to get here. Anybody had told me in the beginning that, yes, you'll make your Broadway debut at 57. 57. I mean, I may have just.
I just think, you know, there have been a lot of gems dropped during the course of this series, Annie, but as much as we're laughing at that, I think that's just such an important point you're making here, because one of the things we as artists, not just actors, artists in general, put on, it's this thing of time. We put, it's hard enough as it is just doing it, but when we add, and I'm guilty of it sometimes, you know, you put this pressure of time on top of everything. It's very hard for you to actually feel true gratitude when you think you're running out of time to do stuff. Do you know what I mean? It's crazy.
You just, uh, yes, you just can't, there's no rushing it. It's just you have to, really slow and steady does win the race, and having, and not be giving in to tears of self-doubt. And when I do other master classes and speak to young actors in particular, I always say, unless it's going to kill you not to do this, don't even start this path, because it is very, very difficult. And only like in SAG-AFTRA now, only I think 0.1% of people make a living wage.
That's crazy, isn't it?
It's crazy. And that I'm still working at 67 is also, I mean, I just really, most people have given it up and moved to Coeur d'Alene. But it's always been such for me that it would, if I didn't have my work, it would kill me. I'll do anything to do it. When I'm not working, I go to schools and I read to school children, because I try to do it in schools that are, where the children maybe don't hear stories told out loud from people who understand whole language. To read to second graders, third graders, and give them that love of hearing words and emotions and things, even if it's, about the little engine that could, or whatever. I think it's, so, I mean, there were some years when reading to school children was all I had.
Wow.
And the teachers would be like, "Oh, Annie, thank you so much for coming in." It's like, are you kidding? If I have 20 kids around my feet, I might as well be in a Broadway house. I'm happy, because they just, so it's like, you need a way to apply your craft. Do it. You can do it in that way. But
I always find that when there's something you brought up about, you said it was sometimes there were periods when it was all you had. And I sometimes find with artists, sometimes when they talk about their day job, quote unquote day job, what this is donating towards theater artists, I call them, and I deliberately called it that because there's a divide. They feel, oh, I'm an actor, and when I'm not an actor, I wait tables. And I always like to sort of say, actually, you're facilitating your being an actor by waiting tables, or by, it's actually part of the whole tapestry of the journey. It's not a separate thing. It's a necessity. You have to do that to do that for now. Do you know what I mean? And
it's a great opportunity to study human behavior.
Yeah.
Because I'll tell you, later on, when you become a known person, then it's harder to do it, because the mask is torn off, you're revealed, and it's like, stop staring at me. And then you, so every life is an opportunity to study human behavior. It's so every moment is like being in a class, isn't it?
It is. I wanted to ask about something you said about if you didn't have your art, it would destroy you. But at the same time, you're this incredible mother to your boys, and Jim, your husband, and I saw. In fact, you're a mother to more than just your immediate family and stuff. There's a lot going on in your life despite acting. Because I sometimes worry, because when we do if I don't say statements like, if I don't do this, it would kill me. That doesn't necessarily mean that's all you do. It's part of, it's part of the tapestry of your life, and it's very important to have the other stuff as well, right?
Absolutely. And it's, although it was not easy to have 3 children, and do the work that I was doing. Especially in the days when I was doing an hour drama and I had an infant and a 3-year-old and a 15-year-old working 16, 17 hours a day. That was some, I mean, there were years literally when I just got almost no sleep. And I always felt like I was lucky, you know, as actors, we think we're never going to work again. It's like, yeah, I got to enjoy this. And luckily, you know, the boys are all grown up now and they're just awesome. And it's just been, I've always felt it's like, how can I be creative today? I mean, just recently, as with the coming of COVID and the lockdown and everything, it was like, okay, get to work. What can you do? What can you do? And I learned to sew in theater school. So I've been making masks, and they, you know, I use my name on them, and the charity that I love to support, which is a charity up in Northern California called White Pony Express, that feeds the hungry and clothes those who need it. And they're just doing wonderful things. So I made, my friend Cece Pounder sent me this incredible fabric from Africa. She's a great artist herself and a collector of all things. And she sent me these beautiful African fabrics from her collection. And I made masks of them. They're very bright and happy. And
we need that.
Anyway, so I've just been, I have my own little sweatshop in my dining room, and I'm my own employee, and I just sew my ass off all day long.
Yeah, and you've raised a really lovely amount of money. We were talking about this earlier. Congratulations on that. You know, and you know, putting other people ahead of yourself. Quite incredible in that sense. You know.
Well, it's like, okay, if you earn the privilege of being a known person and have the support of people, then it's like, what do you do with that? I mean, you can't, unless you give it back. I always felt that, you know, the only reason I've been able to hang on to it for as long as I have is that I wanted to give back because I had a hard start, you know. And it's been so meaningful.
And another thing is your creative spirit, because when I met you was just taking up watercolors, weren't you? Watercoloring, because you were again trying to raise money for a very special child you'd met on and you were doing these watercolors. You were learning watercolor and then auctioning. I mean,
actually, I got an app on my phone that I put it there for my little great nieces and nephews, that a finger painting. And I was trying to help this child that I'd met on vacation. And so I painted all these pictures with a finger painting thing that was meant for children. And I made a children's book, and from the proceeds of that, we got him to England, where he could be treated because he he's a special needs kid. And on the island where he grew up, they had no help for that. So we got him there, and he's doing very well.
Yes, it was a beautiful story. You just, all right, let's talk about some of the things that you know, you're going to be doing a masterclass later on in the week. Let's just talk about some of your experiences. I mean, please tell me the set of Ghostbusters looked as fun as the movie did, working with those guys and stuff. What was that like for you? You must have been a child. I mean, like what, 21? Whatever.
Oh, darling, I was 32 when I did that.
Are you serious? Well, it shows. Yeah, I mean, I can't get you've drunk from the well of youth. I mean, what was that like working with those guys? You know,
It was. I did not come from. I didn't ever like improvisation. It was like, hey,
terrifies me to this day.
Shakespeare, give me a good script. I don't want to be making it up.
Yeah.
I mean, the script was wonderful. It was like, why are you all making shit up? Because the script is fine. Anyway, I didn't hardly know what to make of them. Just, but all of them were sweet and funny and wonderful, of course. And
what is it like now? You're about to do another one with all of them.
No, we finished.
You finished it. Sorry, it's coming out. It's coming out next year. So you've done it. How was that?
It was due to come out July 10th.
Oh, right, but they've pushed it. Yeah.
And they've had to put it off. They put it off till next March, which is so disappointing because I was really looking forward to that.
Yeah.
But it's fabulous. It's directed by Ivan Reitman's son, the wonderful Jason Reitman,
right.
Who was literally a kid on the set. I mean, you know, like a kid. And it's a great tribute to his father and others. It's so delightful. I'm can you tell?
Can't wait. I know you can't talk about it. I just wanted to get the excitement of it from you and stuff. And you had this period where, I mean, Harry Crumb, I'm just thinking of all these movies, and long before I knew you, I was watching them in Nigeria, you know, watching these movies, and you spoke about Benedict Peters. I remember an actor once saying to me, this was very early on, and I remember rebelling against it. He came up to me and, you know, he was sort of like the hot shot at Yale Drama. I was an undergrad, just starting to do shows undergrad, and they brought me to Yale Drama because to meet some of the people and stuff. And
because
the guy said,
fabulous.
and the guy said to me, he said, you know, you got to know your niche. He says, know your niche, know who you are, and exploit that. And for me, the actor that I wanted to explore every role and transform in every. It was like, why would I want to do that? But you had, if I were to say something about, there was a real quirky charm, Benedict Peters-esque style. Was that something you said, this is me, this is how people see me, they see me quirky, this is my energy, I'm going to really embrace that? Or, you know, do you see what I'm saying? It's like, was that something you immediately identified people love about you, that sort of quirky, you never know what she's thinking sort of package? Or were you just saying, I'm just being Annie, I'm just being myself, you know?
I didn't know that I was quirky. I mean, I did have a sense of what was funny or not, because I came from a family that, a good Southern family, they were wonderful storytellers. And from the time we were little, we were asked to tell stories, repeat stories, you know, for company and family gatherings and things. And you had to tell the story right. And if you didn't tell the story right, you were corrected. It's like, no, it's not funny like that. You left that part out. You didn't, so I was in acting class from the time I could speak with them. And that, because my parents both they told a fabulous story, and other people in my family as well. So and actually, I thought my sisters were a lot funnier than me. I was just more the observer. Of course, I used that later. But yeah, I don't know. I mean, I think I was I love to come home from school, and there was a 4 o'clock movie on every afternoon, a black and white, and
Yeah.
classic movies, all the screwball comedies, all of that stuff. And me and my sister sat down every afternoon at 4 o'clock, and we watched the movie. And
Yeah.
I began to see my heroes there, my Carol Lombard and Rosalind Russell and Katharine Hepburn, and I mean, they were fabulous. I've just been my youngest son wanted to look at screwball comedies. My son, the poet, wanted to look at that, and I was like, "Oh, I love to see all that with you again." And it's so I have kind of a renewed admiration for the speed at which, I mean, they must have rehearsed and rehearsed.
Yes, yes.
I mean, they are going 90 miles an hour, and the camera's not coming in for close up or anything.
I'm moving now.
They lay back and just let the scene play out.
Yeah.
And it's fabulous.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. So those screwball comedies there was something that was so impactful for you. You saw yourself heading in that. You wanted to be those guys, was it? Would you say?
Well, at that point, it was, the dreams of a little girl on a farm.
Yeah.
But yeah, it was just like all of us.
So you said you did all these Shakespeare plays in California and didn't go down whatever. Is that because I remember you around Pippin taking the time to come out and see Lear in the park and all that. Is Shakespeare still something that you care about deeply? Is there a part of you that still has a list you still like to play and all that Shakespeare wise?
Oh gosh, I don't know if I could memorize all that now. I think back to the time I did, and it was like, really? Wow. I mean, I felt Shakespeare was a great teacher. I mean, he tells you everything.
Mm-hmm.
All of that. I found a book. I wish I still had this book. I wish I'd stolen it from my college library. It was an explanation of how he did everything, the meter, everything, so that those who do it well, like yourself, you can't, if you understand the science of how he wrote, you can't do a bad line reading. You just, or you shouldn't be. It's like it's all there. So I just felt like he was a wonderful instructor, and I was so grateful to be able to have that teaching.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But they weren't very interested in Shakespeare here. I once went into a office of a casting person, and I was there as a favor. It may have been someone that Roddy had sent me to, and anyway, I she was a little bored, and I said, well, if you were interested, because I'm an idiot, I'm so green, I know nothing. I said, well, I'm doing Cymbeline right now, and if you come to the theater and see me, you would get a good idea of what I do. And she went, yes, darling, we know you do Shakespeare, but can you act?
Oh my God. Wow.
Was like, well, which is not to say that everybody who's doing Shakespeare can act.
Yeah.
But it was a little like
a slap on the face. Yeah.
Yeah. And I thought, well, Jesus, what do you have to do to get people to understand your value?
Yeah. Yeah.
Try again.
Try again. So is right now you're on Young Sheldon, and that's just like a massive show. I mean, that's another sort of, is that another sort of 16 hours a day, only this time you don't have 3 kids to raise and stuff, or what? How's that going for you?
It's not, because they're young children in it, and they're very stiff rules, and work hours. They can only work only. When they were they had just turned 9 years old when we started, so they could only work 9 hours. I think
Right.
now they can work 9.5 hours or something, but it keeps our
Right.
hours down. They're very reasonable. And it's the cushiest job I ever had. I adore the children. They're all sweet and funny and sunny, and they sit in my lap and kiss me all day and tell me they love me. It's like, and they pay me.
Heaven.
It's
Heaven.
like, I'm in walking distance to the studio, which is almost unheard of in LA.
Yeah.
So it's
Agreed.
it's funny and sweet, and I think a tonic for the times. I think,
Yeah.
I went to watch my favorite show of the last few years, which is Killing Eve. I just love that Phoebe Waller-Bridge, holy smoke. And Jodie Comer, oh my God. I met her I was at an awards thing, and she was in front of me. I totally fangirled her. I screamed, I fell down. She was like, oh God. Anyway, I went to watch the 3rd season of it the other night, and it's some tough stuff, lots of blood and killing. And I was like, I can't do that right now. I can't watch my favorite actors in a brilliant show, because it's too dark for me right now. So I think that Sheldon is light and funny and sweet, and harkens to a more innocent
happy time. Yeah.
You knew that would be 2 months gone.
Gone. Yeah. Well, before I turn you over to some questions from the audience, they're going to be, and you'll be working with some that are sort of asking you, you've had this continue to have this wonderful career through tough times and everything like that. And what's the advice you give people in those, I'll use my favorite allegory, those, spaces in between the pictures in the album, and the album is all smiley faces, it's all when you've landed, and all the spaces in between that you where all the shit happens, basically. What advice as Annie Potts would you give people who are, especially when you think there's going to be some people here that have just graduated into this, about keeping going and staying active and staying alive and staying not literally alive, although that may be the case, but outlook on this work,
Well, endure. Endure. That is the race of life. And living is the same as acting it. And you just have to, and I know it's not always easy, but if you look to apply the things that you love to do to helping other people, even if it's just, helping the older woman up with her grocery bags in the elevator, or whatever it is, even if you have to act like you love her, act like you really want to help her, and find every way you can to be useful. I think that I've always thought, I've been so grateful to be an actor, because we remind people that it's okay to feel how they feel. People check in with us, and if we give them the okay to feel joy in life or feel sad in life.
Mm-hmm.
And if we do our work right, you know, that's so find a way to use your joy and employ your gifts, and be creative in everything you do. Cooking, everything. You know, it's all art.
That's beautiful. I knew you'd have a great answer to that one. That's why I threw it at you. All right, Michelle, questions. Let's have some questions.
This question is from Angela. What's it like being the voice of an animated character, and how does it differ from working on a typical TV or movie set?
Thank you for that question. That's a good question. That's it's, well, those Pixar people are so fun to work with. I mean, they are the most, I mean, they are like volcanoes of creativity. So when you're in the room and those people are there and you're, I mean, one thing that I had to learn, because when I did the Toy Stories, I'd only done one other voice thing. And when you only have your voice, it's a completely different thing. So, you know, it's the size of the proscenium is right here, your voice box in your mouth. And of course, you know, your head and your heart. But it's a completely different animal, but it is joyous to work with them because they all sort of have, they've got golden ears to hearing what is, and you can see it in the movies because they're pitch perfect, every one. But, you know, often we redo, you say hello 100 times. No, say it again, please. And just this time, hello, hi. You know, it's just, oh my God, it's so exhausting. On this last one, usually you work alone with the creators and the editors and the writers and there's a lot of hands in it, but usually the actor works solo. But this time I got to work with Tom Hanks.
Isn't he the best? Isn't he the best? I mean, we could share. I mean, he is genuinely exactly what you hope he is when you eventually work with him and meet him, isn't he? He's just like unbelievable.
All and more.
And then so talented. It's not just that he's a nice guy. He's so bloody good at what he does. And I think of what you were saying about paying forward and the graciousness to people. I remember the first time, and you can tell me your story, the first time I met him, I was at the time talking to a day player at the time, you know, eating, and Tom came over. He said, introduced himself, said, "Hey, I'm Tom Hanks. We're working together." I was like, okay, I know you're talking. But then what was brilliant is that before we started, because he likes to run lines beforehand, you know, before he started running, he gave this day player 15 minutes of our lunch break chatting to them about how they got to doing a day play thing from where. And I just remember just thinking, that's why everyone and the universe sort of hears that and throws that back at you when you have that graciousness, isn't that, you know? But what's your story with him, you know?
Oh, well, the same. You know, you're not going to get a different story about Tom Hanks because he's the loveliest human being, you know. Yeah. Nobody who meets him is going to say otherwise. And I think, you know, he's interesting because he's interested in other people. It's not, he's not about himself at all. Mm-hmm. It's about the day player, the everything. And he's wonderful, and he's so, you know, he works so hard at it, and he's just delightful.
But on Toy Story, you got to work more with him than normal.
Yes, because the story is mostly about our relationship. So they decided in that case they would have us both together. So I got to spend quite a bit of time with him, and I knew him a little bit outside of work because our sons are dearest friends. Mm-hmm. His youngest son, Truman, is dear friends with my boy Harry. They went to school together. Mm. So and their son, I mean, Rita's terrific too, you know, the whole family, you know, the boy is amazing and sweet and funny and real and like.
So when you're acting with, just trying to think of you guys who are these expressive, you know, you use your body so well, you're physically great. So when you suddenly start focusing in on just like you said, this, and that, I mean, is that hard? Is it something you're now a lot more comfortable with? Is it, you know, because I suck at voiceover.
No, you couldn't, that's not possible. You know, it's a different tone. I'm totally, I mean, I always have been, I feel like I was trained well. And if the director wants you to do something, you try with all your heart to do it as they've asked you to do. Mm-hmm. I'm that actor.
Yeah.
There have been times when I get the bit in my teeth and go, I'll do it, but you're wrong. Or, and sulk a little bit about it. But because you know, if they played it back for me, I would try to hear it. And I mean, I'm hard on myself, be like, no, it's not right. I want to do it again. It's not right.
Yeah.
And there's just a couple of things in the last movie of Toy Story, and I hear it's like, oh, I want to do it again. I want to do it again. But like I said, they've got a golden ear, and you just have to be complete. You have to totally surrender to the director in that case, I think, and just, it's like, do it.
Yeah.
Tell me what you want.
I thought that was very beautiful. I actually saw that with my nephew, and I had to not let myself cry because, you know, I had to play the uncle. Mr. Next question.
It's okay to cry.
I was sort of like doing that on the side. I was like, do you like it? Do you like it? It's good, isn't it?
Okay, this next question is from Gabby. What's one of your most challenging roles that you've ever done, and how did you approach it?
One of the most challenging roles. Oh gosh. Well, it was tricky to learn the trapeze at 62 with 2 broken legs. That was really, and I had to learn it and do it in 2 weeks because that's all. This isn't Pippin. It's like, really, it was like all I wanted to do was musical theater. All I wanted to do was Broadway, and God, in His infinite, hilarious view of my life in particular, was like, I'll tell you what, I'm going to let you have that, but you're going to have to do it in 2 weeks, and you're going to have to sing upside down on a trapeze. So that was like, come on, you're kidding. But because that's what I wanted. It's the old.
I can never
be careful what you ask
for. You pulled it off, Annie. You pulled it off. I didn't see the fear. Next question.
Okay, this question is from Chelsea. What are some of the ways that young actors can build the most solid foundations to support a lifelong career in theater and entertainment?
What can you do? You know, try your best with all your heart and leave the results to that. I mean, it's pretty simple. And honestly, if it doesn't work out, find something else, a way to apply what you do. I mean, there are many people who start out and they want this, and then something else. I mean, you know, life kind of gives you indications of where it's leading you. And I mean, look at what we're all dealing with now. because things like this come along in a career, and now in our whole, the whole world, we're tap dancing left and right and trying to figure out what we're going to do with this and how we're going to make it. Every day's like that in a little way. So you just honestly just do the best you can, believe in yourself and believe in your ability to do the right thing. And then life will unfold in the sweetest way if you just kind of surrender to it. Just you endure and you surrender and you do whatever you do with all your heart, and then you'll be happy.
That's the big, remembering that part. It's funny how often we forget to ask ourselves that question, whether actually, am I enjoying this? Am I enjoying myself? When was the last time I genuinely had a day when I was happy? Simple questions like that we forget in the chase, sometimes, Anyway, Michelle, final question, I think.
This next question. No, we've got two more.
We've got two more. Okay, two more.
This next question is from Julian. I'm acting while raising two kids. Was raising kids and acting always in competition for you and your energy, or did you find a way to reconcile them?
Yes, it was always in competition, and it's not easy. And one reason I didn't do theater till later in life is because the boys could manage, my children could manage kind of not waking up and not having me there. They could get through breakfast, but they really wanted me home to tuck them in. And that was it was impossible to do theater and do that. So yes, it was at odds. And but on the other hand, my children really grounded me. And I was always very grateful for that, because it's like, that's how you know what's important. But it can be done. My kids turned out pretty good, and I have asked them directly. It's like, I'm so sorry. And I've been a very ambitious person, and I'm a workaholic. So I feel like I would be saying that in a 12-step meeting. I am a workaholic. And my children had to deal with, it's like, could we have some attention? Could we be, an area of focus for you, crazy person? So they would always kind of snap me back when I would, I was never, oh, there you are with your baby. I get it. They're beautiful too. Well, they're everything. It'll be fine.
All right, final question.
Okay, final question. This is my question, but what is it like having iconic roles from Pretty in Pink and Ghostbusters and Designing Women, and having, acquired fans that way and taking those characters like through the rest of your life, essentially?
Well, who would have guessed when I was in the middle of doing them? You don't ever think, well, this is going to be iconic. But I have had the great fortune to be part of things that have really had legs, they, and I'm so happy that that's true. I run into a lot of people who say, oh my gosh, I was a teenager and I watched Pretty in Pink, and it just, or Ghostbusters or the Toy Stories, all of these things. Now Toy Story, I kind of had a feeling that was gonna be
right from the start. You knew it was, yeah.
But all the other stuff, I mean, I took the best of what was offered me, and some of it was not great stuff. but I often had to pay the rent.
Mhm.
And, you know, I do some Hallmarky kind of movies that are popular, but were distasteful to me. It was just, you know, sappy. And although I like sappy things, it's just, you know, it wasn't art. I didn't feel like it was art, but,
Mhm.
you know, the kids were in private school and rent had to be paid, and I did what I needed to do, and hope that not too many people saw it. We've all been in that play. It's like
Absolutely.
you kind of want a full house and you kind of want an empty one.
Oh, Annie, that was absolutely and spot on time. Thank you so much for being. And in fact, Michelle, can you just open up so everyone can say their thanks to Annie and stuff while we're here?
Ordering 100
Thank you. Thank you.
Hi.
Thank you.
Best.
Thank
Thank you, Annie.
I wish you all well. I wish you courage to endure.
Fantastic.